We all know about Sonic Unleashed. This game, despite being shunned when it first released, has grown a massive following in recent years, to the point where IGN even re-reviewed the game to give it a higher score. However, I think the game deserves this turnaround in reception. But come on guys, zip it up when you're done. Again, I love Unleashed. I have very fond memories of getting this game for my 11th birthday, and playing it from sun up till sundown, grinding out times on the stages till my controllers would break. But come on guys, best Sonic game, one of the best games of all time, settle down a little bit. So in this video I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between to show why Sonic Unleashed is now one of the most overhyped Sonic games. The story of Sonic Unleashed is good. I know, hot take. The best Sonic story behind Black Knight. Sonic's characterization is great as always. It really helps that Jason Griffith really found his footing when voicing Sonic by this point, and his dynamic with Chip is really cool to see. While this does mean that they sideline my boy Tails, Tails is still fun to see when he comes on screen, along with Amy being really neat as well. However, what steals the show in my opinion is, when it comes to the story, is the comedy. Throughout the 2010s, Sonic stories tried to be more comedic. They took themselves less seriously. And while in some cases it wasn't all bad, I mean the Sonic Boom TV show is genuinely funny, however, a lot of the time the humor fell really flat. However, this game has some actual really fun moments. I mean, just look at Professor Pickle's introduction cutscene.
How dare they call this culinary concoction food? Look here, do you see this sorry excuse for a sandwich? The bread should be no less than 3/4 of an inch thick. Upon it, 1 tablespoon of mayonnaise and a pinch of black pepper. The contents, fresh cucumber, sliced thinly, if you please. Am I quite right, Tails? Get out!
On top of that, there's Chip, who has really funny moments as well. Eggman's role in the story was pretty cool, and his robot SA-55 was the precursor to Orbot and is actually kind of funny. However, even though there are funny moments, there are also times when the game takes itself seriously, like Sonic and Chip's talk in Atabat or the fight against Dark Gaia at the planet core. It really helps that the cutscene presentation is some of the highest quality not only Sonic has gotten, but from most other mainstream platformers in general. I mean, that intro cutscene looks straight out of the cinema. However, the gameplay is where the complaints start building up. The gameplay is split up into 2 main gameplay styles, day and night. At day you play with a new gameplay style for the series, the boost. When you hold down the square button, you bliss forward at lightning speeds, and this makes the level design more about reaction time and testing your reflexes. And honestly, the controls are great. Each and every move flows so well together, allowing you to chain moves and constantly keep the flow going. The lightspeed dash, stomp, wall jump, air boost, and whatever else are all used in tandem to keep you blasting through, and once you build that flow state, it's perfection. However, daytime Sonic isn't perfect. For one, the drift. The drift is something that's supposed to help you make sharp turns without having to stop and slowly run, and it's a great move. Not in this game though. You see, the drift is very weird. In Generations, you just hold the trigger button and you drift. However, the drift is programmed very weirdly in this game. First you have to stop boosting, go in the opposite direction of where you are turning, and then drift through the turn. While this isn't the most terrible thing in the world, it's just kinda awkward. On top of that, this is never explained anywhere else in the game. Not in the tutorial level, not in any menu, not even in the manual. And I checked while writing this part of the script, if it was in the manual or not. In fact, the first time I saw anyone even figure this out was when Unleashed Recompiled came out. 17 damn years after the game came out. I want to reiterate that point. It took 17 years for even the glaziest glazers to figure out how to use the drift in this game. That's how bad the system is. However, other than that, the gameplay is good. However, what gives me the most issues is the level design. For the most part, the level design is really good. The high-speed action a lot of these stages give you is insane, with these stages going on up to 5 minutes. However, some of the stages in this game are padded out with so many quick-step sections and rail switching and QTEs. A good example of this is Skyscraper Scamper. The first part of this stage is amazing, but once you hit the QTE ramp after the 2D section, you get sent into a long quick-step section, which sends you onto some rails, and then you quick-step again, but it's up a building this time, and then you finish off the stage on rails. I'm not saying every stage is just boring automation, but at the same time, it can feel like some stages are heavily padded by these automated bits. However, that doesn't take away from the good stages, because when the devs cooked, they cooked. Windmill Isle Act 2, Savannah Citadel Act 1, Arid Sands Act 1, and Jungle Joyride Act 1. These stages are all amazing, and some of the best stages in the franchise. Too bad I can't say the same about the bosses. The bosses for Daytime Sonic are fine, but the main problem is that they are all a copy and paste of each other, just slightly harder. However, moving over to the Werehog is where my real problems begin. The Werehog is the main thing that got slammed when the game originally came out, and while I do think reviewers were way too harsh on it, I'd be lying if I called the Werehog good. While the Werehog is fun, I won't lie, there are many problems it does have. For one, the combat is way too button mashy. While some people would say it's more fun if you learn the combos, at the same time, if you can beat the game by mashing through enemies and not giving it any thought, then what's the point of learning the combos? On top of that, even when you learn the combos, it's just C-tier God of War. And while it's a fun C-tier God of War, why is that in my Sonic game? My main issue with the Werehog is that it doesn't fit in a Sonic game, and I think Scott the Wise actually brought up a great analogy when talking about it. The Werehog is like playing a crossword puzzle in between Smash Bros. Games. The problem is not that they are bad crossword puzzles, the problem is that I have to play them in between games, and that's how I feel about the Werehog. If I'm playing a Sonic game, I want to either play as Sonic and the fast speedrunning gameplay that comes with it, or if I have to play as another character, I also want them to be about fast speedrunning gameplay. I think a good example is 06. Execution aside, how they did playable characters was great. They had one of the three hedgehogs being the main playable characters of each campaign, so you would still have a fast speedrun gameplay as the main focus. However, now and then you would switch to a new character, giving you a switch-in controls and giving you a new gameplay style to mess around with, while also still being fast and fun. However, the Werehog isn't that. While the Werehog has potential to be better, I mean platforming with him is fun, when the platforming works. However, I would have preferred them just using the dev time they would have spent making Werehog stages into making more day stages, even if it means the game has less content overall. However, this is not where my gripes end. I still haven't talked about the progression system, and despite what you think about everything else I've talked about, you're out of your mind if you think the progression system is good. How you unlock new stages and progress the story are Sun and Moon medals. These can be found throughout both day and night stages, and honestly, they are really fun to collect. However, the problem is that 120 Sun medals are required to reach the final day stage. There are 10 Sun medals in each night stage. There are 8 levels before this. Assuming you get all 10 medals in each night stage, you will be 40 medals short. I remember being an 11-year-old stuck on this part of the game for 6 whole months. Don't even get me started on the final boss of the game, which I genuinely think is the worst supersonic boss ever. Yes, worse than the Time Eater. At least the Time Eater is short. This boss takes forever. You start the boss controlling the Gaia Colossus, slowly approaching Dark Gaia at a blazing speed of 1 mile per hour. And once you reach Dark Gaia, you do a QTE and then switch to Sonic. Sonic runs through a pretty fun obstacle course, and then bonks Dark Gaia on the eye. You do this 3 times for both characters. While the Sonic stuff is fun, sitting through the Gaia Colossus 3 times is genuinely draining. However, after you're done, you transform into Super Sonic, and then you fly around Dark Gaia's force field killing his weird tentacle thingies. This isn't terrible, but it isn't that fun. Then you end off the boss with more QTEs, and then the magnificent honor of mashing the square button 60 times. I still remember not being able to beat this game when I was younger because I lacked the ability to press the square button 60 times in a row. And that's why I never beat Sonic Unleashed on the PS3. This isn't even a joke. Say skill issue all you want, but come on. Remind me when the game trained me on how to mash the square button more than 5 times. The presentation of this game is good if you're playing it on an Xbox Series console. If you're not, this game runs like
a 2-pack of ass!
The game drops frames almost any time an object is on screen. However, aside from the frame rate, this game genuinely looks good. The environments are beautiful and detailed, the real-life cities are beautifully translated, the cutscenes, as I mentioned earlier, are amazing. Even as an Xbox 360 game, it could still pass off as a modern game today. It's probably one of the best-looking Sonic games of all time, which is kinda sad to say, but whatever. My only issue is that a lot of the stuff is pixelated, but yeah. The soundtrack, however, is amazing no matter what. Each and every stage track is so peak. The main theme, Endless Possibilities, is amazing. The cutscene music is great. The fact that the music is based on real-world locations' music style is great. There's just no complaints I could possibly have. Overall, from all of the complaining I did, you'd probably think I hate this game. And I don't, not in the slightest. I mean, I've played this game for more hours than I could count. I know some of these stages better than my family members. There's a lot I like about the game. However, there's a lot of things that aren't so great about the game that people just like to ignore. I called this game overhyped not because the game is bad, but because there are bad aspects that people just pretend aren't there. There's a reason Unleashed got low review scores. It's not just because people like to hate on Sonic. That's definitely part of it. But still, Unleashed isn't as good as it could be. Thank you for sticking all the way to the end and hearing me out. However, tell me how you feel about the game in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. But that's all from me. Peace.